Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're listening to this to fall asleep, get cozy and relax. Today, I'll be sharing with you some real-life crime cases from around the world. But before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Alright, let's dive in. Sierra Yugon was a radiant young woman whose infectious cheerfulness lit up every room she entered. Her laughter was a melody that could lift even the heaviest of hearts, and her adventurous spirit made her a magnet for joy. No matter the situation, Sierra had a knack for finding humor, turning mishaps into moments of shared amusement. Even when she stumbled, her ability to laugh at herself endeared her to everyone around her. As she stepped into high school, her confidence blossomed like a flower in spring. She embraced new challenges with fearless enthusiasm, diving into experiences that others might shy away from. One such venture was volleyball, where she displayed remarkable poise both on the court and off, her grace under pressure earning her admiration from teammates and coaches alike. After returning from a family vacation on July 19, 2016, Sierra was buzzing with excitement for the new semester at the University of Toledo. She had big plans, including a dream to study abroad, a goal that reflected her boundless curiosity about the world. She had recently purchased a new purple bike, a symbol of her independence, and was eager to take it for a spin through the familiar streets of her neighborhood. Her mother, ever the planner, wanted to sit down and discuss the details of Sierra's study abroad program, but Sierra had other ideas. She decided to visit her boyfriend Josh's house, a 7.12-mile ride away. Dressed in shorts and a tank top, she left home in high spirits, her smile as bright as the summer sun. "I'll be back by 10:05 p.m., she promised her mom, her voice brimming with the carefree confidence of youth. But as the evening wore on, that promise went unfulfilled. When Josh tried to call Sierra later that night, her phone went straight to voicemail, a silence that sent a chill down his spine. Alarmed, he contacted Sierra's mother, who immediately sensed something was terribly wrong. A mother's intuition is a powerful thing, and hers was screaming that her daughter was in trouble. Without hesitation, Sierra's family, her mother, her aunt, and Josh sprang into action, mounting a frantic search effort. They combed the neighborhood, their hearts pounding with every step, hoping to find Sierra safe but fearing the worst. They suspected she might have been in an accident, perhaps a fall from her bike on a quiet road. Despite their exhaustive efforts scouring every street and alley, they found no trace of her. No bike, no belongings, no clues to her whereabouts. As the hours ticked by, Sierra's family grew increasingly desperate. Her mother, unable to shake the gnawing dread in her chest, contacted the police, who arrived about an hour later. The situation took a darker turn when a concerned neighbor approached the family with troubling news. County Road 6, a nearby stretch, was blocked off by authorities. The family rushed to the scene, their minds racing with possibilities. What they found was chaos, a cordoned-off area, flashing police lights, and officers who refused to let them pass. The officers, tight-lipped and professional, offered no information, leaving Sierra's family in a state of panic. Their questions hung unanswered in the air, and the uncertainty was suffocating. In their desperation, they decided to reach out to the FBI, hoping federal resources could break through the wall of silence. As the night stretched on, sleep was unthinkable. Sierra's family was consumed by worry, their minds tormented by the question, what had happened to their vibrant, beloved daughter? The next day, Sierra's mother and aunt threw themselves into the search, calling hospitals across the region, asking about any unidentified young women who might have been admitted. Their hearts leapt when they received a promising lead from Detroit, Michigan. A young woman, resembling Sierra, had been admitted to a hospital after escaping from a moving vehicle, sustaining serious injuries. Could it be her? To confirm the woman's identity, a nurse asked Sierra's family to describe any distinctive marks on her body. Sierra's mother, her voice trembling with hope, mentioned a scar on Sierra's calf and her pierced belly button. The description seemed to match, and for a fleeting moment, the family dared to believe they had found her. They clung to this hope, imagining Sierra alive, perhaps battered but safe. But their relief was short-lived. When they learned the woman in the hospital was not Sierra, their world crumbled again. The devastation was crushing. They had pinned their hopes on this lead, only to be plunged back into despair. Later that morning, police officers arrived at Sierra's home to provide an update on the previous night's events. One officer recounted a chilling discovery. While parking his car near County Road 6, he had noticed a disturbed cornfield, its stalks trampled as if a struggle had taken place. As he approached, he saw signs of violence, broken plants, scuffed earth, and then something glinted in the moonlight. It was Sierra's purple bike, abandoned in the field. To avoid contaminating potential evidence, the officer retreated without touching anything, but not before spotting more items scattered nearby: a pair of male sunglasses, a pair of female sunglasses, a bloody sock, and a screwdriver. These findings painted a grim picture. The police now believed Sierra had likely been abducted from that very spot, a realization that sent a shiver through her family. Detectives investigating Sierra's disappearance turned their attention to her relationships, interviewing friends and family to learn more about her boyfriend Josh. They discovered that Sierra and Josh had been inseparable since childhood, their bond forged when they were just 7 years old. What began as a playful friendship blossomed into romance during their freshman year of high school. Together, they were a vibrant, adventurous couple, known for their shared love of skiing. They would hit the slopes, laughing and racing down snowy hills, their connection growing stronger with every adventure. After high school, Sierra enrolled at the University of Toledo, while Josh attended Bowling Green. The physical distance tested their relationship, but their commitment never wavered. They spoke often of marriage, though Sierra, ever practical, wanted to focus on her studies first, determined to build a solid foundation for her future. Despite the challenges of being apart, their love remained steadfast, a beacon of hope in their young lives. On July 19th, detectives learned that Sierra had visited Josh's house in the early afternoon. She left around 6:30 p.m. to head home, a journey she insisted on making alone. Josh, concerned for her safety, accompanied her partway on his motorcycle, the hum of the engine a reassuring sound as they rode together. But after a few miles, Sierra, confident and independent, urged Josh to turn back, assuring him she'd be fine on her bike. Reluctantly, Josh agreed, and they parted ways, Josh returning home on his motorcycle, Sierra pedaling onward. It was a decision that would haunt him. The investigation took a critical turn when detectives found motorcycle tracks in the corn stalks near Sierra's bike. This discovery raised a pressing question. Could those tracks belong to Josh's motorcycle? The possibility couldn't be ignored, and the detectives delved deeper, setting up a command post to gather and analyze evidence. A promising lead emerged when a local resident came forward, reporting that on July 14th, he had found a motorcycle helmet on the side of the road. While driving, he had picked it up and stored it in his truck. After hearing about Sierra's disappearance, he examined the helmet closely and noticed red stains that looked like blood. The helmet was found in the same area as Sierra's bike, a coincidence too significant to dismiss. The detectives questioned Josh about his motorcycle helmet, and to their relief, he produced it, confirming he still had it. They also verified his alibi with his parents, who vouched for his whereabouts, ruling him out as a suspect. Sierra's family, though shaken, never doubted Josh's innocence, their trust in him unshaken by the police's scrutiny. Determined to identify the owner of the blood-stained helmet, the detectives recognized the power of DNA evidence. They sent the helmet to the crime lab for testing, hoping for a breakthrough. As they waited for results, the news of Sierra's disappearance spread like wildfire through the town. The community rallied together, organizing search parties that scoured every corner of the area, fields, woods, and roadsides, in hopes of finding any clue to Sierra's whereabouts. Their unity was a testament to the love Sierra inspired. To show their support, the community held a candlelight vigil at the local high school, an emotional gathering filled with grief, hope, and determination. Hundreds gathered, their candles flickering in the night, each flame a prayer for Sierra's safe return. 2 days into the investigation, the police received a tip about a suspicious van speeding through the area where Sierra vanished. They suspected she might have been taken in the van, possibly as a victim of sex trafficking. Another tip provided a license plate number linked to the van. The police tracked down the owner, who explained that he had sped up because another vehicle, possibly a family member searching for Sierra, had approached from behind, startling him. This explained his hasty departure, which had seemed suspicious at the time. Despite this, the lead went cold. After 48 hours with no sign of Sierra, Her family's hope of finding her alive began to fade, each passing moment a weight on their hearts. The police continued their door-to-door searches, eventually arriving at a nearby farm owned by James Worley. The property included a house, a trailer, and a large barn, its sprawling grounds offering plenty of places to hide evidence. The detectives questioned Worley about the day Sierra disappeared, hoping for any scrap of information. To their shock, Worley revealed he had been riding his motorcycle that day, but claimed it had broken down, causing him to lose some items, including a screwdriver and his helmet. The coincidence was staggering. These were the exact items found at the scene of Sierra's abduction. This revelation ignited suspicion, and the detectives pressed harder. They noticed scratches on Worley's face, fresh marks that suggested a recent struggle. Could these be from a confrontation with Sierra? Determined to uncover the truth, they dug into Worley's background, and what they found was chilling. Worley had a dark criminal history, including a 1989 attempt to abduct a 26-year-old woman named Robin Gardner. On July 4, 1989, Robin had been riding her bike when a car struck her from behind, sending her crashing into a ditch. The driver, later identified as Worley, approached her, feigning concern, but quickly revealed his sinister intentions. He struck her in the head and threatened her with a screwdriver, forcing her into his car and attempting to handcuff her. Robin fought back fiercely, preventing him from securing the second cuff. Despite her injuries, she screamed for help, her cries lost in the desolate cornfields. Just as hope seemed lost, a motorcyclist appeared, noticed her distress, and stopped. Robin seized the chance, climbing onto the motorcycle and escaping. The motorcyclist drove her home, where she collapsed. Her mother called the police and an ambulance, and Robin was rushed to the hospital. The motorcyclist led the police back to the scene, where they found Worley still present with his car. He cooperated, providing identification, but lied about his intentions, claiming he was only trying to help Robin after a bike accident. The police didn't buy it. Worley was arrested, convicted of attempted kidnapping, and sentenced to 6 to 10 years. Due to good behavior, he was released after just 3 years, a fact that terrified Robin when she learned of it. Given Worley's history, the police had strong reason to suspect him in Sierra's disappearance. They obtained a search warrant for his residence, which he shared with his mother. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but a thorough search of his expansive backyard revealed a suspicious barn. Inside, they found a small green crate containing labeled sealed bags of women's clothing, including a pair of bloody purple panties. They also discovered a hidden freezer, an air mattress with stains, zip ties, duct tape, and handcuffs. Worley claimed these items were for a porn business, but the evidence suggested something far more sinister. The police collected everything for DNA testing, and the findings were damning enough to arrest Worley for Sierra's murder. The investigation expanded, with police searching every inch of Worley's property, even draining a pond in hopes of finding more evidence. The question on everyone's mind was, where was Sierra's body? Detectives scoured attics, insulation, and neighboring properties, recognizing that evidence might have been scattered beyond Worley's land. A farmer reported a suspicious area in his field, where corn was matted down near a mound of dirt that looked like a potential grave. Alarmed, he contacted the police, who responded promptly. They processed the area carefully, but found no clues. Using drones and helicopters, they searched adjacent farms, eventually discovering another mound of dirt with matted corn. Trained dogs signaled a potential crime scene, and as the police dug, they made a grim discovery: human remains, later confirmed to be Sierra's. Her hands were bound behind her back, her feet tied to handcuffs, and an object was lodged in her mouth, restricting her airway, the cause of her death. The devastating news was delivered to Sierra's family that night, their grief overwhelming, a palpable sorrow that enveloped them. 1 month after Sierra's abduction and murder, James Worley was indicted on 19 counts, including kidnapping and aggravated murder. 2 years later, he stood trial, pleading not guilty despite overwhelming evidence. Over 8 intense days, the state presented a terrifying case, and after 6 hours of deliberation, the jury found Worley guilty on all counts related to Sierra's murder. The sentence was death, a final reckoning for the man who had stolen Sierra's light from the world. In November 2011, the Hashim family left their home in Lebanon, driven by a dream of a safer, brighter future in the United Kingdom. Aya's father, Ismail, carried the weight of this hope on his shoulders. He wanted his children to have access to a quality education, to grow into valued members of society, free from the uncertainties they had known. Applying for asylum, Ismail secured a residence permit for his family, and they settled in Blackburn, a town that promised new beginnings. Among them was Aya, a driven and ambitious young woman whose dreams stretched far beyond the horizon. As a law student at Salford University, she was determined to carve out a meaningful life, her eyes sparkling with a promise of what lay ahead. Her parents' hopes for a better future rested on her, a beacon of their aspirations. But on May 17, 2020, those dreams were shattered in a senseless act of violence. That afternoon, around 3 p.m., Aya left her home to run a simple errand, heading to a nearby supermarket to pick up items for her family. It was a routine task, one she had done countless times before, her steps light with the confidence of youth. She promised to be back soon, her voice carrying the warmth her family cherished. But as the minutes turned to hours, Aya did not return. Her father, Ismail, grew uneasy, his instincts telling him something was wrong. He set out to look for her, his heart pounding with a father's quiet fear. Meanwhile, Aya's mother, desperate for answers, turned to the internet. Her search led her to a chilling discovery. News reports of a shooting in their neighborhood, a woman struck down on King Street. The words on the screen blurred as dread settled in her chest. Soon after, the devastating confirmation arrived. Aya, their beloved daughter, had been killed. The details were harrowing. Aya, just 19 years old, had been walking along King Street when a green Toyota Avensis drove by, its occupants shrouded in malice. From the car, 2 shots rang out, one of them striking Aya with fatal precision. Despite the frantic efforts of medical teams, she died that day, her life extinguished in an instant. The police, led by Deputy Chief Terry Woods, quickly clarified that the incident was not motivated by racism or religious hatred. Aya, they believed, was an innocent bystander, caught in the crossfire of a violent act not meant for her. She had been shopping for her family, her thoughts likely on the small tasks of daily life, when tragedy stole her away. Woods appealed to the public for help, urging anyone with dashcam footage or surveillance recordings to come forward, particularly if they had captured the green Toyota Avensis or any suspicious activity. Later that day, the police located the Toyota, abandoned near the crime scene. Its windows still rolled down as if the perpetrators had fled in haste. CCTV footage provided a clearer picture of the horrific moment. At 3:03 p.m., the video showed Aya walking along the sidewalk, her steps purposeful. The Toyota drove past, its rear left window lowered. A shooter leaned out, firing a single, fatal shot that pierced Aya's body and struck a pole behind her. For ethical reasons, the police withheld footage of Aya collapsing, sparing her family the unbearable sight. The video confirmed at least 2 individuals in the car, the driver and the shooter, who fled immediately after the attack, abandoning the vehicle on a nearby street. Within 2 hours, the police had tracked down the car and begun searching for its owner. The investigation revealed a grim truth. Aya's death was a tragic accident, the result of a targeted attack gone horribly wrong. The intended target was the owner of Khan's Car Wash, a local business rival of Farouk Suleiman, a man who allegedly orchestrated the hit. Aya, standing just a few feet from a pole, was caught in the crossfire. The first shot missed its mark, hitting something near a man and causing water to splash, but the second shot struck Aya in the left side of her chest, passing through her body and hitting the pole. The car sped away, leaving chaos in its wake. Khan, the car wash owner, witnessed Aya's fall and rushed to her aid, calling emergency services as he tried to process the horror. He later recounted seeing the car and the gun, describing how the vehicle returned briefly, its occupants aiming at him before fleeing again, leaving him bewildered and shaken. To unravel the crime, the police pieced together the roles of those involved, starting with the mastermind, Farouk Suleiman. Suleiman was a successful businessman, his tire shop a thriving enterprise that afforded him and his family a comfortable life. Active on social media, he often posted photos of himself behind the wheel of luxury cars, projecting an image of wealth and success. But when his business began to falter, Suleiman's ambition turned dark. Determined to eliminate his competitor Khan, he devised a plan to have him killed, enlisting a network of accomplices. Oz Hussein, Zamir Raja, Anthony Ennis, Abu Bakr Siddiq, Kashif Manzur, Usman Siddiq, and Judy Chapman. The day before the shooting, Raja and Ennis conducted a surveillance mission, driving near Khan's car wash to scout the area. Abu Bakr Siddiq, funded by Suleiman, purchased the Toyota Avensis used in the crime, while Kashif Manzur ensured the vehicle was in working order, checking for any mechanical issues. Usman Siddiq and his girlfriend, Judy Chapman, played a supporting role, driving Raja and Ennis to the Toyota's location in their Ford Fiesta and later picking them up after the crime. According to the inquest, at 1:14 p.m. on May 17th, Chapman and Usman Siddiq collected Raja and Ennis from Bolton, driving them 13 miles to Blackburn, where the Toyota was parked. Manzur had prepared the car, but when the group stopped a couple of miles from the car wash, the Toyota's battery was dead. Manzur jump-started it using another car's battery and wires, handing the vehicle over to Raja and Ennis before returning to a service station where Suleiman waited, watching the plan unfold. Raja and Ennis circled Khan's car wash 4 times, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They needed to be on the same side of the street as the target. On their 4th pass, Khan was on the street, but Raja, the shooter, made a fatal error. He fired at an employee, mistaking him for Khan. The first shot missed, but the second struck Aya, who stood between the shooter and the employee. After the shooting, Raja and Ennis fled, abandoning the Toyota and escaping with Chapman and Usman Siddiq, who drove them away from Blackburn. Back at Suleiman's tire shop, Oz Hussein entered, and Suleiman signaled for others aware of the incident to leave the room and head to the 2nd floor. Abu Bakr Siddiq, who had bought the Toyota, was nearby. When he overheard a police radio mention that the perpetrator's car had been found, he stood to speak privately with Suleiman, their faces tense with the weight of their actions. The police moved swiftly. On May 18th, the day after Aya's murder, Farouk Suleiman was arrested. Abu Bakr Siddiq followed on May 19th, with Judy Chapman and Usman Siddiq apprehended on May 20th. Oz Hussein and Kashif Manzur were taken into custody on May 21st. Zamir Raja, the shooter, fled to Portugal, meeting Anthony Ennis, the driver, at Lisbon Airport. Both hoped to evade capture, but Raja was arrested at a London train station on June 6th, and Ennis was caught in Spain on July 4th, later extradited to the UK. Initially, all 8 suspects denied involvement, but as the investigation deepened, their stories unraveled. Under pressure, their accounts became inconsistent, and they began turning on each other, revealing crucial details to the police in hopes of lighter sentences. On August 5, 2021, the court delivered its verdicts, handing down severe punishments. Farouk Suleiman, who had a prior conviction for a fatal hit-and-run in 2001, received a life sentence with a minimum term of 34 years. Zamir Raja, paid $500 for his role, was also sentenced to life with a 34-year minimum. Anthony Ennis, the driver, faced life with a minimum of 33 years. Oz Hussein, who orchestrated the logistics, received life with a 32-year minimum. Abu Bakr Siddiq and Usman Siddiq each got life with a minimum of 28 years, while Kashif Manzur was sentenced to life with a 27-year minimum. The judge condemned their lack of remorse, noting how they lied and manipulated to evade justice, only to betray each other when their defenses crumbled. Judy Chapman's trial concluded in October 2021, where she was found guilty of involuntary deprivation of life for her role in driving the getaway car. She received a 15-year sentence. But the investigation didn't end there. Further analysis of communications between the convicted parties uncovered additional accomplices. Louis Attai, a 42-year-old from Manchester, was sentenced to life with a 32-year minimum on May 5, 2023, for acting as an intermediary between Hussein, Raja, and Ennis. Another conspirator, Banbridge, a 32-year-old woman, was convicted for creating a false alibi for Raja and Ennis. She met them in Bolton, took their phones, and turned them off, later reactivating them in Trafford to make it appear they were in Greater Manchester, not Blackburn, during the shooting. Admitting to conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, she was sentenced to 23 months in prison on August 11, 2023, marking the final conviction in Aya's case. Aya Hashim's death sent shockwaves through Blackburn, a stark reminder of how quickly a life full of promise could be stolen. Her family's grief was immeasurable, their dreams for her future reduced to memories. The tragedy underscored the devastating ripple effects of greed and rivalry, as Suleiman's quest for dominance cost an innocent young woman her life. The community mourned Aya, a bright star extinguished too soon, while her family held on to the love they shared, forever changed by a moment of senseless violence. Gretchen Harrington came into the world on June 13, 1967, in Pennsylvania, the youngest of three sisters in a close-knit, devoutly religious family. Shortly after her birth, the Harringtons moved to Braw, a small, idyllic town where safety was taken for granted, and children roamed freely under the watchful eyes of a Thai community. Gretchen's father, a pastor, took a position at the local church, anchoring the family in the town's spiritual life. Gretchen quickly grew to love Braw, spending her days exploring the outdoors with her sisters and friends, her laughter echoing through the tree-lined streets. The town was a haven, a place where parents felt no need to hover, confident their children could play outside until the sky turned dusky without fear of harm. For Gretchen, life was a joyful adventure, her days filled with the simple pleasures of childhood. Raised in a household steeped in faith, Gretchen spent much of her time at her father's church, where she thrived in Sunday school. Her sharp mind and dedication earned her top grades, a source of pride for her family. She approached her studies with the same enthusiasm she brought to everything, her Bible often tucked under her arm as she absorbed the lessons with earnest curiosity. On August 15, 1975, the Harrington household was buzzing with anticipation. Gretchen's mother had just given birth to a new sister, and the family was eagerly awaiting their return from the hospital. Gretchen, excited to meet her newborn sibling, wanted to stay home to greet them, her heart full of big sisterly affection. But her father, ever mindful of her Sunday school record, encouraged her to attend class, urging her to keep up her stellar performance. Reluctantly, Gretchen agreed, her sense of duty outweighing her desire to stay. Clutching her Bible, she set off for the short 8-minute walk to church, a journey she had made countless times. Her older sisters, who usually accompanied her, stayed home that morning, tending to household tasks. Gretchen, unfazed by the solo trip, stepped out into the warm summer morning, her ponytail swaying with each confident stride. Sunday school in Braw was split into 2 sessions. The first, held at Trinity Church, lasted an hour and a half. Afterward, some children, including Gretchen, would walk to her father's church for the second session. But when the group arrived at the second church at 11:30 a.m., Gretchen's father noticed his daughter was missing. A pang of unease gripped him, but he reasoned she might still be at Trinity Church, perhaps lingering to chat with friends. He called Trinity, and the pastor's wife answered, her voice calm but firm. Gretchen wasn't there. She checked with her husband, David Zanstra, a Sunday school teacher, who confirmed that Gretchen hadn't attended his class that morning. The news hit Gretchen's father like a cold wave. His little girl, always so reliable, was nowhere to be found. His worry deepened, and he asked David to contact the police, then set out to search the area between the 2 churches, his eyes scanning every street and corner. He reached out to the parents of Gretchen's friends, hoping she might be with them, but they were either at church or home, and no one had seen her. Even Gretchen's best friend, David's daughter, hadn't crossed paths with her all day. As word of Gretchen's disappearance spread, the town's sense of security began to crack. The police launched a swift search operation, and the community rallied, with hundreds of volunteers, many of whom knew Gretchen's father from his church, joining the effort. Together, they scoured Braw, their footsteps heavy with purpose, combing every street, park, and wooded area. A police helicopter buzzed overhead, its blades slicing through the quiet, scanning the riverbank and beyond. The search stretched into the night, flashlights bobbing in the darkness, but yielded no sign of Gretchen. The next day, more volunteers poured in, their determination unshaken. Police posted flyers along the roads, Gretchen's smiling face staring out from each one, her description etched in bold letters: dark blue zip-up shorts with front buttons, no zippers or buttons on the pockets, and a white shirt, her hair neatly braided. Despite their tireless efforts, no significant clues emerged, and the town's once unshakable sense of safety began to erode. Braw had always been a place where children played freely, their laughter a constant soundtrack to lazy summer days. But Gretchen's disappearance changed everything. Theories swirled among the townsfolk. Some whispered she might have run away, seeking adventure beyond the town's borders. Others feared she had gone swimming in the river and drowned, her small body swept away by the current. The most chilling theory, though, was that she had been abducted, snatched by a stranger in broad daylight. Parents tightened their grip on their children, no longer allowing them to wander alone, their trust in the world shaken. The police interviewed bystanders, piecing together fragments of information. One witness reported seeing a girl resembling Gretchen near the church that morning, approached by a green sedan. Another described a similar scene, but with a white Cadillac. The police tracked down owners of cars matching these descriptions, but the leads fizzled out, leaving them grasping at shadows. Days later, a new tip surfaced from Westchester, a town 30 minutes away. A resident reported finding children's shorts matching Gretchen's description. The police rushed the shorts to Gretchen's mother, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. But when she examined them, she shook her head. They weren't Gretchen's. The disappointment was crushing. Another door slammed shut. Weeks passed with no progress, and the police, running out of leads, halted their active search, shifting focus to gathering more information. They continued interviewing witnesses, but with each passing day, hope of finding Gretchen alive dimmed, a heavy weight settling over the town. On October 14th, a jogger in a large national park, 20 minutes from Bra, stumbled upon a grim discovery, a child's body hidden among the underbrush. He alerted park rangers, who notified the police. When officers arrived, they faced a sobering reality. The body was so badly decomposed that identification was nearly impossible. Suspecting it might be Gretchen, they showed her parents the clothes found on the body. Gretchen's mother, her hands trembling, recognized them instantly. She had sewn those clothes herself, each stitch a labor of love for her daughter. Forensic experts later confirmed the body was Gretchen's, using dental records to seal the identification. The cause of death was severe head trauma, a brutal end to a young life. The advanced decomposition prevented further details, including whether Gretchen had been sexually assaulted, and DNA analysis, unavailable in 1975, offered no additional leads. The news of Gretchen's murder reignited the community's grief and outrage, prompting a flood of tips to the police. They screened nearby residents with violent histories, but no suspects emerged, and the case grew cold. For decades, Gretchen's murder remained unsolved, periodically resurfacing in newspapers and on television, a haunting reminder of a wound that never healed. The town of Bra was forever changed, its innocence lost. Children no longer roamed freely, and parents kept a vigilant watch, the memory of Gretchen's fate etched into their collective consciousness. The case saw occasional reopenings, with police reviewing old files, but each effort yielded nothing new. Even DNA analysis, when it became available, was useless. No foreign DNA was found on Gretchen's body or clothing. In recent years, the case caught the attention of two local journalists, Joanna and Mike, who grew up in Bra. Joanna, just 9 years old when Gretchen vanished, remembered the fear that gripped the town, the way childhood freedoms evaporated overnight. Determined to uncover the truth, they dedicated years to researching the case, poring over case files and interviewing those involved. Their book, released in 2022, brought renewed attention to Gretchen's story, stirring memories and sparking hope for justice. Months after the book's release, a woman came forward with a revelation that would crack the case wide open. She was 10 years old in 1975 and lived in Hampton, near Gretchen's home. A friend to Gretchen and her sisters, she often slept over at friend houses. One night, at her sister's house, she woke to find their father standing over her, touching her inappropriately. Startled, he fled when she opened her eyes. The next night, he returned, repeating the act. Shaken, she confided in one of her sisters the following morning, only to learn it was a disturbingly common occurrence among her friends. When she told her parents, they forbade her from returning to the house but didn't report the incident, a decision shaped by the era's reluctance to confront such truths. The man she named was David Zanstra, the same pastor who taught Gretchen's Sunday school class. The woman's story didn't end there. A month after Gretchen's disappearance, another friend confided that a man had tried to kidnap her, urging her into his car. She refused and later told friends it was Zanstra, begging them to keep it secret for fear of retaliation. The woman provided her personal diary as evidence, Its entry dated September 15, 1975, documenting her friend's plea for secrecy and her fear of Zanstra's potential harm. This testimony prompted police to reopen the investigation, and a closer look at the case files revealed troubling details about Zanstra. He had reported Gretchen missing, providing a precise description of her clothing: dark blue zip-up shorts with front buttons, no zippers or buttons on the pockets, and a white shirt, her hair braided. Yet he claimed he hadn't seen her that day, raising questions about how he knew such specifics. His description matched the clothes found on Gretchen's body, a chilling coincidence. Further scrutiny revealed inconsistencies in Zanstra's alibi. He had enough time that morning to kidnap Gretchen, kill her, dispose of her body in the park, and return to teach his class. His sudden move to another state months after the murder, combined with his ownership of a green scooter, potentially mistaken for a sedan in witness accounts, heightened suspicions. On July 17, 2023, police confronted Zanstra, now 83 and living in Georgia. Initially, he denied any involvement, his voice steady as he challenged the police to show their evidence. But when presented with the woman's testimony about his inappropriate behavior at the sleepover and allegations of molesting his own daughter, his composure cracked. After 48 years of silence, Zanstra began to confess, his words unraveling a horrific truth. On the morning of August 15, 1975, he drove his green American Motors station wagon to the church where Gretchen's father served. Spotting Gretchen leaving her house, he waited until she was alone, then approached, offering her a ride. Trusting the familiar face of her Sunday school teacher, she accepted. But instead of taking her to church, Zanstra drove to a secluded park area, his intentions far from innocent. He stopped the car and told her to undress. Gretchen, confused and frightened, refused, pleading to go home. Enraged, Zanstra struck her head repeatedly, causing her to lose consciousness. He removed her clothes, committed his crime, and drove to another park, where he hid her body among the bushes, covering it with branches to conceal his sin. Returning to the church, he taught his class as if nothing had happened, his respectable facade intact. Zanstra's confession led to his arrest for Gretchen's murder. He was extradited to Pennsylvania, where he awaited trial. His position as a pastor had long shielded him from suspicion, his authority unquestioned in the community. But the truth, once exposed, was undeniable. Police obtained a DNA sample from Zanstra, comparing it to evidence from other unsolved cases. They linked him to the 1991 disappearance of 4-year-old Amanda Campbell in California, where Zanstra had been a pastor at the time. Though no concrete evidence tied him to Amanda's case, the similarities were striking, prompting further investigation into his potential involvement in other crimes against young girls in the cities where he worked. As of now, Zanstra's trial for Gretchen's murder has not begun. His attorney is pushing to delay proceedings, advising him to retract his confession. If successful, the trial could drag on for years, and given Zanstra's advanced age, he may not live to face a verdict. For Gretchen's family and the town of Bra, the pain of her loss lingers, a wound reopened by the truth but tempered by the hope of justice. Gretchen, a bright and faithful child, was stolen from a world that loved her, but her memory endures, a reminder of the fragility of trust and the enduring quest for truth. In the upscale neighborhood of Srinagar, nestled in the heart of Indore, India, a city repeatedly crowned the cleanest in the nation, the Deshpande family lived a life of quiet affluence. Megha Deshpande, 42, shared her elegant home with her 21-year-old daughter, Ashlasha, and her 70-year-old mother, Rohini. Their residence, surrounded by well-manicured lawns and modern villas, spoke of their financial stability, a testament to Megha's successful career as a senior employee at a multi-level marketing and LM company. LM, a business model built on networks of individuals generating continuous profit through recruitment and sales, had been Megha's domain for years, and her expertise had secured her family a comfortable existence. Her husband, Naresh, a bank manager, remained in Ujjain, a city 35 miles away, due to his work, but the couple's bond remained strong despite the distance. Megha had relocated to Indore with Ashlasha and Rohini just a few months earlier, seeking a fresh start in a city known for its vibrancy and opportunity. The Deshpandes were well-liked in Srinagar, their warm interactions with neighbors fostering a sense of community. The area was a haven of sensible, prosperous residents, untouched by the kind of crime that plagued less fortunate parts of the world. No one in Srinagar locked their doors at night, and the streets buzzed with the easy trust of a place where danger seemed a distant concept. But on June 13, 2011, that illusion of safety was shattered in a way that would shake Indore to its core, leaving the city reeling from a tragedy that no one could have foreseen. That morning, the Deshpande household was unusually quiet. By noon, no one had emerged from the house, and the familiar sounds of daily life, Rohini's soft humming, Ashlasha's laughter, or Megha's phone calls, were absent. A neighbor passing by on her usual walk noticed something alarming: footprints stained with blood trailing around the house, their crimson streaks stark against the pristine pavement. Her heart raced as she approached. Her knocks on the door met with eerie silence. Peering through a window, she froze, a scream tearing from her throat. Inside, she saw 3 women lying motionless on the floor, surrounded by pools of blood, their bodies still in a scene of unimaginable horror. Panicked, she alerted other neighbors and called the police, her voice trembling as she described the grisly discovery. Word spread quickly, and by the time the police arrived, a large crowd had gathered outside the Deshpande home, their faces etched with shock and disbelief. Officers secured the scene, stepping carefully into the house where the air hung heavy with tragedy. They were stunned by what they found: Megha, Ashlasha, and Rohini brutally murdered, their lives stolen in a vicious act that defied the peace of Srinagar. The police began their investigation immediately, noting 2 bullet shells on the floor, a chilling clue to the violence that had unfolded. One officer observed that Megha had been shot in the head, the wound precise and fatal, but a thorough search of the house failed to locate the second bullet, leaving a nagging question in the investigators' minds. The forensic team was called in to collect evidence, and the bodies were sent for post-mortem, the weight of the task pressing on everyone involved. As news of the triple homicide rippled through Indore, the city was gripped by a collective sense of horror. Srinagar, once a symbol of tranquility, became a place of whispered fears. Hours later, the post-mortem report revealed the grim details. Ashlasha and Rohini had died from excessive bleeding caused by multiple stab wounds, their bodies bearing the marks of a frenzied attack. Megha, however, had been killed by a single gunshot to the head, confirming the bullet's deadly accuracy. The presence of 2 bullet shells, yet only one confirmed shooting, deepened the mystery. If a second shot had been fired, who or what had it struck? The public, along with Naresh, Megha's devastated husband, demanded swift justice, their voices rising in a chorus of grief and outrage. The pressure mounted on the police, who felt the urgency to solve the case before the trail went cold. Multiple teams were deployed, each tasked with a specific angle of the investigation. One team analyzed the call detail records of the victims, while another re-examined the forensic evidence. Early findings revealed a critical clue: blood at the crime scene that didn't belong to Megha, Ashlasha, or Rohini, suggesting the presence of another person, perhaps the killer. The police also noted signs of theft, with valuables missing from the home, leading them to file the case as a robbery murder. Further investigation uncovered a pattern of calls to Megha's phone from a specific number, with lengthy conversations that piqued the detectives' interest. Tracing the number, they discovered it belonged to a young woman named Nia Vura. The police began tracking Nia's location, hoping she could provide a lead, while sending the unidentified blood sample for analysis. One day, a breakthrough came when Nia was spotted near an ATM in the area. A police team swiftly brought her to the station for questioning. When informed of the murders, Nia's face paled, her shock seemingly genuine. She recounted how she had met Megha, painting a picture of a chance encounter that had sparked an unlikely friendship. It began in a bustling shopping mall, where Nia, rushing through the crowd, accidentally bumped into Megha, causing her to drop her items. Nia apologized profusely, helping Megha gather her things, and the two struck up a conversation that felt effortless. Megha, warm and approachable, invited Nia to walk with her to her car, and from that moment, their connection grew. They exchanged phone numbers, and Nia, intrigued by Megha's work in MLM, began calling her to learn more about the business model, their chats filled with curiosity and camaraderie. But the police weren't convinced. Nia's words didn't align with her nervous body language, her eyes darting as she spoke. Under intense questioning, her story began to crumble, and she could no longer withstand the pressure. With a trembling voice, she confessed a truth that stunned even the seasoned detectives, revealing a tale of greed and betrayal that had led to the annihilation of an entire family. Nia Vara, 23, was a striking young woman with a cheerful demeanor, but beneath her beauty lay a life of financial struggle. A beautician by trade, she earned a modest income that fell far short of her dreams. Her father, an ordinary van driver, could barely support the family, leaving Nia yearning for a life of comfort and glamour. It was during this time of quiet desperation that she met Rahul Choudhury, a 24-year-old whose handsome features masked a similar financial hardship. Their friendship quickly deepened into love, a bond fueled by shared aspirations and a hunger for something more. They dreamed of marriage, of a life where money was no longer a barrier, and they became obsessed with finding a way to get rich quickly, to seize the future they felt they deserved. When Nia met Megha at the mall, she noticed something that sparked a dangerous idea. Megha, adorned in gold jewelry that gleamed under the mall's lights, exuded wealth, her every accessory a symbol of the life Nia craved. Sensing an opportunity, Nia deliberately cultivated their friendship, her smiles and questions masking a calculating intent. As their phone conversations grew frequent, Nia's thoughts turned to robbery, a plan she shared with Rahul. She told him about Megha, describing her as a wealthy woman living in a house with no men, a perfect target for their scheme. Rahul's eyes lit up at the prospect, the promise of quick riches outweighing any moral qualms. If they could pull it off, their financial woes would vanish, paving the way for a comfortable life together. From that moment, Rahul began plotting the crime, his mind racing with possibilities. He believed that by eliminating Megha, Ashleisha, and Rohini, they could steal their wealth and escape without leaving witnesses, ensuring no one could report them. To execute the plan, Rahul needed a gun, and he turned to his friend Manoj, who was close to both him and Nia. Manoj provided the weapon, his involvement sealing his fate as an accomplice. With the means in place, Rahul scouted for the perfect day to strike, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. On June 13, 2011, Nia contacted Megha, expressing interest in joining her MLM scheme, a pretext to gain access to the house. Megha, delighted by Nia's enthusiasm, welcomed the idea, unaware of the tragedy that loomed. The next morning, Nia arrived at the Deshpande home, her smile as disarming as ever. Megha invited her inside, asking her to fill out a form for the MLM company. Nia, feigning confusion, said she needed help with the details and asked to call a friend for assistance. Megha agreed, oblivious to the danger. Nia stepped aside and dialed Rahul, signaling that the moment had come. Rahul and Manoj, waiting nearby, moved quickly, their nerves taut as they approached the house. When Rahul entered, he wasted no time, pulling out the gun and pointing it at Megha. Her eyes widened in shock, but before she could react, he fired, the bullet striking her head and killing her instantly. The gunshot, muffled by the close range, didn't carry beyond the house, but its echo reached Ashleisha and Rohini, who rushed into the lobby, their faces pale with fear. Rahul and Manoj, now confronted by the two women, demanded Ashleisha's ATM card and PIN, their voices sharp with menace. Terrified, Ashleisha complied, handing over the card in a desperate bid to save their lives. She hoped the intruders would take what they wanted and leave, but Rahul, Nia, and Manoj were gripped by a new fear. Ashleisha and Rohini had seen their faces, and the risk of being identified was too great. Rahul raised the gun again, aiming at Ashleisha, but in his haste, he misfired, the bullet striking his own foot, sending a jolt of pain through his body. Undeterred, Manoj took over, wielding a knife with brutal precision. He attacked Ashleisha and Rohini, stabbing them repeatedly until their bodies crumpled, their lifeblood pooling on the floor. The violence was swift and merciless, leaving the house silent except for the labored breathing of the killers. With their mission complete, the trio ransacked the house, stealing 1,000 Indian rupees, jewelry worth up to 500,000 rupees, and Ashleisha's ATM card. They fled, their hearts racing with adrenaline and guilt, believing they had committed the perfect crime. Nia planned to withdraw money from the ATM card, but her attempt was cut short when the police tracked her down near the ATM, her presence there a fatal misstep. Rahul, meanwhile, made a bold but foolish move. Limping from his self-inflicted gunshot wound, he went to a police station to file a fake first information report, hoping to deflect suspicion. His injury required hospitalization, and when police compared his blood sample to the unidentified blood found at the crime scene, it was a perfect match, sealing his fate. The police moved quickly, their investigation unraveling the conspiracy with remarkable efficiency. Manoj was apprehended soon after, and the trio's web of lies collapsed under scrutiny. Bloodied clothes, knives, and stolen jewelry were found in their possession, further damning evidence of their guilt. The case, which had gripped Indore with fear, was solved in record time, earning the city's police force widespread praise for their diligence. The legal process, however, stretched on, with the case winding through the courts for over 2 years. In December 2013, the district court delivered its verdict, sentencing Nehavra, Rahul Chaudhary, and Manoj to death by hanging, a historic ruling that marked the first time a woman in the district faced capital punishment. The sentence reflected the brutality of their crime, which had wiped out 3 generations of the Deshpande family, leaving no survivors to carry on their legacy. Nia, now incarcerated in Central Jail, has taken to teaching a beauty parlor course to other female inmates, a stark contrast to the life of crime that led her there. Naresh Deshpande, Megha's husband, expressed satisfaction with the court's decision, his voice heavy with grief but resolute in his faith in the judiciary. "The police did a great job," he said, his words a small comfort in the face of unimaginable loss. The tragedy of the Deshpande family became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked greed. Nia and Rahul, driven by a desire to get rich overnight, had transformed from ordinary dreamers into cold-blooded killers. Had they fled the country after the murders, they might have evaded justice, but their recklessness betrayed them. Reflecting on the chain of events, one question lingered. If Megha hadn't worn her valuable jewelry to the mall that day, or if she hadn't trusted a stranger so quickly, might her family still be alive? The lesson was clear. Friendships forged too hastily can carry hidden dangers, and trust, once misplaced, can lead to devastating consequences. Karina Vetrano was a vibrant 30-year-old woman whose energy seemed to light up the streets of Howard Beach, Queens, New York. Known for her radiant smile and boundless enthusiasm, she was a fitness enthusiast who embraced life with a contagious zest. On August 2, 2016, Karina laced up her running shoes, ready for her daily jog through Spring Creek Park, a familiar route she often shared with her father, Philip Vetrano, a retired firefighter who had been her running partner for years. The park, a mix of marshy trails and open paths near her home, was her sanctuary, a place where she could push her limits and clear her mind. That afternoon, however, Philip was nursing a back injury, his usual vigor dimmed by pain. He urged Karina to skip her run, suggesting they spend the evening together instead, perhaps grabbing dinner or watching a movie. But Karina, ever determined and fiercely independent, brushed off his concerns with a playful smile. "I'll be fine, Dad," she said, her voice brimming with confidence. "I'll be back before you know it." Philip's unease lingered as Karina stepped out into the warm summer air, her athletic gear hugging her frame, earbuds tucked in, and her phone secured in her hand. She promised to stay alert, aware of the park's reputation for being desolate in parts, its winding trails offering both solitude and vulnerability. As she jogged away, Philip stood at the door, his heart heavy with a father's instinct that something wasn't right. He tried to shake it off, telling himself Karina was strong, capable, and knew the park like the back of her hand. But as the minutes ticked by, his worry grew, a gnawing feeling he couldn't ignore. Karina's route took her through the quieter sections of Spring Creek Park, where tall grasses swayed in the breeze and the hum of city life faded into the distance. She was in her element, her stride steady, her mind focused on the rhythm of her breath. But at 5:40 p.m., as she navigated a secluded trail, her world was shattered. An attacker emerged from the shadows, his presence sudden and menacing. Karina fought back with every ounce of her strength, her nails clawing at her assailant, her body resisting the violence that sought to overpower her. She was a fighter, unwilling to surrender, but the attack was brutal. Her assailant strangled her, the life draining from her body as she lay in the grass, her phone and earbuds scattered nearby, silent witnesses to the horror. When Karina didn't return home by 7 p.m., Philip's worry turned to panic. He called her phone repeatedly, each unanswered ring tightening the knot in his chest. He contacted the police, his voice trembling as he reported his daughter missing, and then set out for the park, his injury forgotten in the urgency of the moment. Alongside a neighbor, Philip combed the trails, his eyes scanning every shadow, his heart pounding with dread. At 8 p.m., his worst fears became reality. Near a weedy, secluded path, he found Karina's body, her lifeless form crumpled in the grass, her face bruised, her clothes disheveled. The sight broke him. He fell to his knees, a guttural cry escaping his lips, the weight of loss crashing over him like a tidal wave. The neighbor, equally shaken, called for help, and soon police and paramedics arrived, their flashing lights cutting through the gathering dusk. The police secured the crime scene, cordoning off the area as forensic teams began their work. Karina's body showed signs of a fierce struggle, bruises on her arms, scratches on her face, and evidence of strangulation, later confirmed as the cause of death. Investigators noted possible sexual assault, a detail that deepened the tragedy's horror. Her phone, found nearby, was smeared with blood, and her earbuds lay tangled in the grass, hinting at the violence that had unfolded. The police collected DNA evidence from under Karina's fingernails, a critical clue that suggested she had fought her attacker with everything she had. Philip, devastated but resolute, stayed at the scene, his grief mingling with a burning need for justice. He vowed to find the person responsible, his love for Karina fueling his determination. The investigation began in earnest, with police canvassing Howard Beach for witnesses. A dog walker reported seeing a man acting suspiciously in the park around 5:30 p.m., describing him as lingering near the trails, his demeanor uneasy. Another witness recalled a similar figure, dressed in dark clothing, slipping into the park's denser areas. Despite these accounts, no clear suspect emerged, and the trail seemed to grow cold. The community, shaken by the brutality of the crime, rallied around the Vetrano family. Karina had been a beloved figure, her warmth touching everyone from neighbors to local business owners. Vigils sprang up across Queens, with hundreds gathering to light candles and share memories of Karina's infectious spirit. Her mother, Kathy, spoke at one vigil, her voice breaking as she described Karina's love for life, her words a plea for anyone with information to come forward. Months passed with no arrests, the case weighing heavily on the New York Police Department. Detectives pursued every lead, from analyzing Karina's phone records to interviewing local residents with criminal histories, but nothing panned out. Philip, unwilling to let his daughter's killer walk free, became a vocal advocate for the case, appearing on news programs and urging the public to help. "Someone knows something," he said, his eyes red with grief but unwavering. "Karina deserves justice." The DNA evidence from her fingernails, sent to the crime lab, offer hope, but initial tests failed to match any known profiles in the database, leaving investigators frustrated. 6 months later, on February 5, 2017, a breakthrough came. A detective, reviewing the case with fresh eyes, revisited the DNA evidence and requested a broader search, leveraging advancements in forensic technology. The sample was retested, and this time it matched a profile in a national database. Chanel Lewis, a 20-year-old man from Brooklyn with no prior criminal record. The match was a shock. Lewis was not a known offender, and his name had never surfaced in the investigation. Detectives tracked him down to a public housing complex in East New York, a neighborhood far from Howard Beach. They observed him discreetly, noting his solitary habits and quiet demeanor, a stark contrast to the violence he was suspected of committing. On February 7th, police brought Lewis in for questioning, approaching him cautiously to avoid spooking him. At first, he was cooperative, answering questions with a calm that unsettled the detectives. But when confronted with the DNA evidence, his composure faltered. He denied knowing Karina or ever being in Spring Creek Park, claiming he had no reason to be in Howard Beach. "I don't even know where that is," he said, his voice flat, his eyes avoiding contact. The detectives pressed harder, presenting surveillance footage from a nearby bodega that placed him in the area on August 2nd. Faced with mounting evidence, Lewis began to unravel, his story shifting under the weight of the truth. After hours of interrogation, Lewis confessed, his words spilling out in a halting, almost detached manner. He admitted to attacking Karina in the park, claiming he had been wandering the trails. Lost in his thoughts, we saw her running alone. Something snapped inside him, he said, a mix of anger and impulse he couldn't explain. He grabbed her, overpowering her despite her fierce resistance, and strangled her, his hands tightening until she stopped moving. He denied sexually assaulting her, insisting the encounter was brief, but the physical evidence told a different story. Lewis's confession, chilling in its simplicity, left the detectives shaken, their minds grappling with the randomness of the crime. The police searched Lewis's home, recovering clothing that matched the witness descriptions from the park. A pair of sneakers stained with grass and dirt was sent for forensic analysis, linking him further to the crime scene. Lewis was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and sexual abuse, his mugshot a stark reminder of the face behind Karina's death. The news of his arrest brought a bittersweet relief to the Vetrano family. Philip, who had carried the weight of his daughter's loss for months, felt a flicker of closure, though the pain remained raw. Karina fought for her life, he said at a press conference, his voice steady despite his grief. And now we'll fight for her justice. The trial began in November 2018, drawing intense media attention. Prosecutors presented a compelling case, built on the DNA evidence, Lewis's confession, and forensic findings from the crime scene. The blood on Karina's phone, the scratches on Lewis's hands, and the grass stains on his sneakers painted a vivid picture of the struggle. The defense, however, argued that Lewis's confession was coerced, claiming he was pressured by police during a grueling interrogation. They also questioned the DNA evidence, suggesting contamination or mishandling, though forensic experts testified to its integrity. Lewis's mother took the stand, her voice trembling as she described her son as a gentle, misunderstood young man who struggled with social interactions but was incapable of such violence. The jury, however, was unconvinced. After a week of testimony, the jury deliberated for 2 days, their faces somber as they weighed the evidence. On November 21, 2018, they returned a guilty verdict on all counts, convicting Chanel Lewis of murder and sexual abuse. The courtroom, packed with Karina's family and supporters, erupted in quiet sobs and murmurs of relief. Philip and Kathy embraced, their tears a mix of sorrow and vindication. The judge sentenced Lewis to life in prison without parole, a punishment that reflected the brutality of his crime. "You took a life from this world," the judge said, his voice firm as he addressed Lewis, who sat expressionless, his eyes fixed on the floor. The trial's conclusion marked the end of a painful chapter for the Vetrano family, but Karina's absence remained a void that could never be filled. Philip continued to honor her memory, establishing a foundation in her name to support young women pursuing fitness and education, a tribute to Karina's passions. Spring Creek Park, once a place of solace, became a site of pilgrimage for those who loved her, with a small memorial of flowers and candles marking the spot where she fell. Howard Beach, forever changed by the tragedy, grew more vigilant, its residents more cautious, the innocence of carefree runs in the park lost to the reality of what had happened. Karina Vetrano's story, though steeped in tragedy, became a testament to resilience and the enduring power of community. Her family's unwavering pursuit of justice, coupled with the dedication of the police, ensured that her killer faced consequences. Yet the randomness of her death, a chance encounter on a familiar trail, left a lingering question: how could such a vibrant life be extinguished so suddenly? For those who knew Karina, her spirit lived on in their memories, a reminder to cherish every moment and to hold loved ones close, for no one can predict when fate might intervene. Nancy Lagerquist, an 87-year-old widow, had lived a life rich with stories, her days woven with the quiet joys of family and community. By 1990, she resided at the Riverside Healthcare Center in Missoula, Montana, a facility known for its serene setting along the Clark Fork River. Nancy's world had grown smaller with age, her once vibrant steps slowed by the weight of years, but her spirit remained bright. She cherished the visits from her children and grandchildren, their laughter filling her room with warmth. Her room at Riverside was a cozy haven, adorned with framed photos of her loved ones and a few cherished trinkets from her past. A small porcelain figurine, a faded quilt, reminders of a life well lived. The staff at Riverside knew her as a gentle soul, always ready with a kind word or a soft smile, even on days when her strength waned. On July 1, 1990, the morning began like any other at Riverside. The air was warm, carrying the scent of summer through the open windows, and the facility hummed with the routine of caregivers tending to residents. Nancy, though frail, was in good spirits, her eyes bright as she chatted with a nurse about her grandson's recent school play. She wore her favorite pale blue nightgown, its soft fabric a comfort against her fragile frame. After breakfast, she settled into her chair by the window, gazing out at the river, its gentle ripples a soothing backdrop to her thoughts. The staff noted her contentment, unaware that this ordinary day would soon be marked by tragedy. Around midday, a nurse making her rounds noticed Nancy was not in her room. Her absence was unusual. Nancy rarely left without assistance, her mobility limited by arthritis and age. The nurse checked the common areas, thinking perhaps Nancy had wandered to the dining hall or the garden, but she was nowhere to be found. A quiet unease settled over the staff, and they alerted the facility's director, who initiated a search. Caregivers fanned out across Riverside, calling Nancy's name, their voices tinged with growing concern. They checked every hallway, every lounge, even the laundry room, but there was no sign of her. The director contacted Nancy's family, her voice steady but laced with worry, asking if they had taken her out for a visit. Her daughter, Margaret, felt a chill at the news. Nancy hadn't been with them, and she was not one to wander off. Margaret rushed to Riverside, heart pounding with a mother's dread, joined by her siblings, their faces pale with fear. As the search intensified, the staff discovered a troubling detail. A side door leading to the riverbank was slightly ajar, its lock disengaged. This door, rarely used by residents, opened to a narrow path that wound toward the Clark Fork River, its banks lined with tall grass and scattered trees. The discovery sent a ripple of alarm through the facility. Could Nancy, in a moment of confusion, have wandered outside? The staff notified the Missoula Police Department, and officers arrived swiftly, their presence a stark contrast to the facility's usual calm. They organized a search party, enlisting staff, family, and volunteers from the community. The riverbank became the focal point, its proximity to the open door a haunting clue. Margaret clung to hope as she joined the search, her eyes scanning the grass for any sign of her mother, a dropped scarf, a footprint, anything. The river, usually a source of peace, now loomed as a threat, its currents hiding untold dangers. As the afternoon wore on, a volunteer spotted something near the water's edge, partially hidden by reeds. It was Nancy's body, lying motionless in the shallow water, her pale blue nightgown tangled in the grass. A gasp escaped Margaret's lips as she rushed forward, only to be held back by an officer. The scene was devastating. Nancy's face, once so full of warmth, was still, her body bruised and battered, her arms bearing marks that spoke of violence. The police cordoned off the area, their faces grim as they began to process the scene. Nancy's family stood frozen, their grief a heavy weight, the reality of her loss sinking in like a stone. The police investigation revealed chilling details. Nancy had been sexually assaulted and strangled, her death the result of a brutal attack. Her body showed signs of a struggle, bruises on her wrists, scratches on her neck, and mud caked into her hands, as if she had fought to survive. The location of her body, just yards from Riverside's side door, suggested she had been lured or forced outside, her trust perhaps exploited by someone she knew. The Clark Fork River, while close, had not swept her away. She had been left in the shallows, her killer likely fleeing in haste. Forensic teams collected evidence from the scene, fibers from her nightgown, traces of soil, and crucially, semen that offered hope of identifying the perpetrator. The samples were sent to the crime lab, but in 1990, DNA technology was in its infancy, and the results were inconclusive, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. The police interviewed Riverside's staff, residents, and visitors, searching for anyone who might have seen Nancy that morning. A nurse recalled a maintenance worker lingering near Nancy's room earlier that day, his behavior unremarkable at the time but now suspicious in hindsight. Another staff member mentioned a delivery driver who had seemed overly curious about the facility's layout, his questions lingering in her memory. The police also considered the possibility of an outsider, someone who had slipped through the side door, exploiting Riverside's lack of security. They canvassed the neighborhood, asking residents if they had noticed strangers near the riverbank, but no clear leads emerged. The community, shaken by the brutality of the crime, rallied around Nancy's family, holding a vigil at a local church where candles flickered in her memory, their soft glow a tribute to her gentle spirit. Nancy's family was devastated, their grief compounded by the violation of her final moments. Margaret struggled to reconcile the image of her mother's peaceful mornings with the horror of her death. She was so frail, so trusting, she said, her voice breaking as she spoke to a local reporter. Who could do this to her? The family pressed the police for answers, their pain fueling a demand for justice. They buried Nancy in a quiet ceremony, her grave adorned with flowers from those who loved her, each bloom a symbol of a life cut short by cruelty. The investigation focused on Riverside itself, its proximity to the crime scene raising unsettling questions about who had access to Nancy. The facility's director tightened security, installing locks on all exterior doors and reviewing staff protocols. But the changes felt like too little too late. Detectives explored the theory that the killer was someone familiar with Riverside's routines, perhaps a staff member or a frequent visitor. They interviewed a groundskeeper with a minor criminal record, his alibi shaky, but he denied involvement, and no evidence linked him to the crime. Another lead pointed to a former employee who had been fired weeks earlier, his resentment toward Riverside well known, but he had an airtight alibi, verified by multiple witnesses. As weeks turned to months, the case grew cold, the lack of forensic breakthroughs frustrating investigators. The semen evidence, while preserved, couldn't be matched to any known suspects, and the police lacked the technology to extract more from it. Nancy's family refused to let her case fade, organizing annual memorials to keep her name in the public eye. Margaret became an advocate for elder safety, speaking at community forums about the need for better security in care facilities, her mother's memory driving her resolve. No one should die like she did, she said, her words a plea for change. Years later, advancements in DNA technology offered new hope. In the early 2000s, the Missoula Police Department reopened Nancy's case, resubmitting the semen sample for analysis using modern techniques. The results were disappointing. No match was found in national databases, suggesting the killer was either deceased or had never been arrested for a crime that required DNA submission. Detectives revisited the possibility of a serial offender, noting similarities with another murder at Riverside just months earlier, that of Bertha Scott, an 86-year-old resident killed under eerily similar circumstances. The proximity of the two crimes, both involving elderly women at the same facility, suggested a pattern, but without concrete evidence, the connection remained speculative. The case took a significant turn in 2010 when a cold case task force was formed in Missoula, dedicated to unsolved homicides. They re-examined Nancy's file, focusing on the DNA evidence and the list of persons of interest from 1990. One name stood out, a former orderly at Riverside who had left the facility shortly after Nancy's murder. The man, now in his 60s and living in another state, had a history of minor assault charges but nothing that had triggered DNA collection. Detectives tracked him down, requesting a voluntary DNA sample. He refused, his demeanor defensive, prompting the police to obtain a warrant. The sample was a partial match to the semen found on Nancy's body, not conclusive enough for an arrest, but enough to keep him under scrutiny. The task force also explored links to Bertha Scott's case, suspecting the same individual might be responsible, but the evidence remained frustratingly elusive. As of 2025, Nancy Lagerquist's murder remains unsolved, a lingering wound for her family and the Missoula community. The Clark Fork River still flows past Riverside, its beauty now tinged with the memory of a life lost. Margaret, now in her late 60s, continues to honor her mother, placing flowers by the river each July 1st, her hands trembling with the weight of unanswered questions. The police have not closed the case, and periodic reviews keep hope alive that a breakthrough, perhaps a new DNA match or a witness coming forward, will finally bring justice. Nancy's story is a stark reminder of the vulnerability of the elderly and the fragility of trust in places meant to be safe. For those who knew her, she remains a symbol of resilience, her gentle smile enduring in their hearts, even as the truth of her final moments remains just out of reach. Bertha Scott, an 86-year-old widow, had spent her life nurturing her family and community in Missoula, Montana. By 1990, her days of tending to her garden and hosting lively family gatherings had given way to the quieter rhythms of life at the Riverside Healthcare Center, a facility nestled along the serene banks of the Clark Fork River. Despite her advanced age, Bertha remained a spirited presence, her eyes twinkling with the wisdom of a life well lived. Her room at Riverside was a sanctuary of memories, decorated with faded photographs of her children and grandchildren, a knitted afghan draped over her chair, and a small vase of wildflowers she loved to keep fresh. The staff adored her for her sharp wit and gentle humor, often pausing to listen to her stories of Missoula's past, told with a warmth that made every listener feel like family. On May 2, 1990, Riverside buzzed with its usual morning routine. The air carried the soft promise of spring, and sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a golden glow over the hallways. Bertha, dressed in a soft lavender nightgown, had enjoyed her breakfast in the dining hall, savoring her oatmeal and exchanging pleasantries with a caregiver. She spoke excitedly about an upcoming visit from her daughter, Ellen, who planned to bring her grandchildren to brighten Bertha's day. After breakfast, Bertha returned to her room, settling into her favorite armchair to read a letter from her son, her fingers tracing the familiar handwriting with a contented smile. The staff noted her cheerful mood, unaware that this ordinary morning would soon be marred by an unthinkable tragedy. By late morning, a nurse making her rounds noticed Bertha's absence from her room. Her chair was empty, the letter neatly folded on the table, and her walker, which she relied on for mobility, stood untouched by the door. The nurse's initial curiosity turned to concern. Bertha's arthritis made unassisted movement difficult, and she rarely ventured far without help. The nurse checked the common areas, thinking Bertha might have joined a group activity or lingered in the garden, but she was nowhere to be found. A quiet alarm spread among the staff, and they alerted the facility's director, who initiated a thorough search. Caregivers scoured every corner of Riverside, calling Bertha's name with increasing urgency, their voices echoing through the halls. They checked the library, the chapel, even the storage rooms, but there was no trace of her. The director contacted Bertha's family, her voice steady but strained, asking if they had picked her up for an outing. Ellen, Bertha's daughter, felt a surge of dread at the news. Her mother hadn't been with them, and wandering off was unlike her. Ellen rushed to Riverside, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Joined by her brother, their faces etched with worry. As the search expanded, a staff member made a troubling discovery. A rarely used side door leading to the riverbank was slightly ajar, its latch undone. This door opened to a narrow path that snaked toward the Clark Fork River, its banks shrouded in tall grass and shaded by cottonwood trees. The find sent a chill through the staff. Could Bertha, confused or disoriented, have wandered outside? The director notified the Missoula Police Department, and officers arrived promptly, their presence shattering the facility's calm. They organized a search party, rallying staff, family, and community volunteers to comb the riverbank and surrounding areas. Ellen joined the effort, her heart pounding as she scanned the grass for any sign of her mother, a dropped handkerchief, a scuff in the dirt, anything to cling to. The river, usually a tranquil feature of Riverside's grounds, now loomed as a place of danger, its currents hiding secrets beneath their gentle ripples. Hours into the search, with the sun climbing higher, the police decided to expand their efforts beyond the immediate grounds. They brought in a team of archaeologists from the University of Montana, experts in uncovering hidden traces, to assist in examining the riverbank. The archaeologists, equipped with tools and a meticulous eye, began a systematic survey of the area, focusing on spots where the grass appeared disturbed. Near a cluster of reeds, one archaeologist noticed an unnatural mound of earth, its surface slightly uneven, as if hastily covered. With careful precision, they began to excavate, their tools brushing away layers of soil. As the dirt fell away, a collective gasp rose from the team. They had uncovered human remains, partially buried in the shallow grave. The police took over, their faces grim as they confirmed the body was Bertha's. Her lavender nightgown, now stained with mud, clung to her frail frame, and her body bore unmistakable signs of violence. Bruises on her arms, marks around her neck, and evidence of sexual assault. Ellen, standing nearby, collapsed into her brother's arms, her sobs echoing across the riverbank, the weight of her mother's fate too heavy to bear. The police secured the scene, cordoning off the area as forensic teams descended to collect evidence. The postmortem revealed a horrific truth. Bertha had been raped and strangled, her death the result of a brutal attack. The marks on her neck suggested a fierce struggle, her hands scratched and dirted as if she had fought to free herself. The shallow grave, dug in haste, indicated the killer had attempted to conceal the crime, perhaps hoping the river's proximity would obscure their tracks. Forensic experts recovered critical evidence, semen on Bertha's body, fibers from an unknown fabric, and traces of soil that didn't match the riverbank's composition. These samples were sent to the crime lab, but in 1990, DNA analysis was rudimentary, and the results offered no immediate answers. The police photographed the scene meticulously, noting the disturbed grass and a faint footprint near the grave, its tread pattern too faint to identify. The investigation zeroed in on Riverside Healthcare Center, its proximity to the crime scene raising unsettling questions about security and access. Detectives interviewed every staff member, resident, and visitor present on May 2nd, searching for any anomaly in the day's routine. A caregiver recalled a janitor lingering near the side door that morning, his presence unremarkable at the time but now suspicious. Another staff member mentioned a delivery worker who had asked odd questions about the facility's exits, his curiosity lingering in her memory. The police also considered an external predator, someone who had exploited Riverside's lax security to slip through the side door. They canvassed the neighborhood, asking residents if they had seen strangers near the river, but the responses were vague: a man in a dark jacket, a car idling briefly, nothing concrete enough to pursue. Bertha's family was shattered, their grief compounded by the violation of her final moments. Ellen struggled to process the loss, her mind replaying memories of her mother's laughter, now overshadowed by the horror of her death. "She was so kind, so defenseless," Ellen said, her voice trembling as she spoke to a local journalist. "How could someone hurt her like this?" The family demanded answers, their pain fueling a resolve to see justice served. They laid Bertha to rest in a quiet ceremony, her grave adorned with wildflowers, a nod to her love for nature. The Missoula community, reeling from the brutality of the crime, held a vigil outside Riverside, where candles illuminated tear-streaked faces, each flame a tribute to Bertha's enduring spirit. The police explored the possibility that the killer was someone familiar with Riverside's layout, perhaps a staff member or a regular visitor. They scrutinized a maintenance worker with a history of petty theft, his alibi inconsistent, but no evidence tied him to the crime. Another lead pointed to a former caregiver who had been let go for misconduct, his resentment toward the facility well documented. But he was out of state on May 2nd, his whereabouts verified. The semen evidence, while preserved, couldn't be matched to any known suspects, and the limited forensic technology of the era stalled progress. Detectives also noted a disturbing parallel. Just 2 months later, on July 1st, 1990, another Riverside resident, Nancy Lodgerquist, was found murdered under similar circumstances, her body discovered in the river's shallows. The proximity of the two crimes, both elderly women, both sexually assaulted and strangled at the same facility, suggested a possible serial offender, but without definitive evidence, the connection remained a theory. As months turned to years, Bertha's case grew cold, the lack of forensic breakthroughs leaving investigators frustrated. Ellen and her siblings refused to let their mother's memory fade, organizing annual memorials to keep the case alive. They placed a small plaque by the riverbank, inscribed with Bertha's name and a simple message: "Forever loved." Ellen became an advocate for improved safety in care facilities, speaking at local events about the need for better oversight, her mother's death a catalyst for change. "She deserved to be safe," she said, her words a call to action. In the late 1990s, advancements in DNA technology prompted the Missoula Police Department to revisit Bertha's case. The semen sample was retested using more sophisticated methods, but the results were disheartening. No match was found in national databases, suggesting the killer had either died or avoided crimes that required DNA submission. Detectives cross-referenced the evidence with Nancy Lodgerquist's case, hoping to find a link, but the DNA profiles, while similar in type, were inconclusive, leaving the serial killer theory unproven. The police also re-interviewed key witnesses, including a former Riverside nurse who recalled a suspicious visitor in early 1990, a man who had posed as a family member but seemed unfamiliar with the resident he claimed to visit. The lead went nowhere. The man's identity lost to time. In 2015, a cold case task force in Missoula took up Bertha's case, armed with modern investigative tools. They focused on the DNA evidence and the original list of persons of interest, zeroing in on a former Riverside orderly who had moved to Idaho shortly after the murders. Now in his late 50s, the man had a record of sexual harassment complaints from his time at Riverside, though none had led to charges. Detectives obtained a DNA sample via court order, but it didn't match the semen found on Bertha's body, ruling him out. The The task force also explored a new angle, the possibility that the killer was a transient, someone passing through Missoula in 1990, perhaps drawn to Riverside's secluded riverbank. They reviewed old police logs from the area, searching for reports of vagrants or suspicious activity, but the trail remained cold. As of May 2025, Bertha Scott's murder remains unsolved, a lingering scar on Missoula's conscience. The Clark Fork River continues to flow past Riverside, its beauty now tinged with a memory of 2 lives lost. Ellen, now in her early 70s, visits her mother's plaque each spring, her fingers brushing the engraved words as she whispers a quiet prayer. The Missoula Police Department keeps the case open, with periodic reviews fueled by the hope that a new DNA match or a long-buried witness account will finally bring closure. Bertha's story, like Nancy's, underscores the vulnerability of the elderly in places meant to protect them, a sobering reminder of the need for vigilance. For those who knew Bertha, her legacy endures in the love she shared, her twinkling eyes a light that no darkness could extinguish, even as the truth of her final moments remains elusive. Case Sarah Stopp's Pretty Places was a vibrant 27-year-old woman from Hardin, Montana, a small town on the Crow Indian Reservation where the bonds of community ran deep. Known for her radiant smile and fierce independence, Case Sarah was a beacon of light to her family and friends. She was a proud member of the Crow Nation, her life steeped in the traditions and resilience of her people. Quezera's days were filled with purpose. She worked odd jobs to support herself, dreamed of pursuing further education, and cherished moments with her loved ones, especially her younger siblings, whom she guided with a big sister's wisdom. Her laughter echoed through Hardin's dusty streets, and her determination to carve out a better future was palpable, a quiet fire that burned in her eyes. On August 24, 2019, Quezera's life was bustling with activity. She had spent the morning helping a neighbor with chores, her hands busy and her spirit high. By afternoon, she decided to head to a local gathering in Hardin, a casual event where friends and family often came together to share stories and laughter. She wore her favorite outfit, a bright red shirt, blue jeans, and a pair of worn sneakers that carried her confidently through town. Before leaving, she hugged her mother, Diane, promising to be back by evening. "Don't worry, Mom, I'll be home for dinner," she said, her voice warm with reassurance. Diane smiled, accustomed to Quezera's independent streak, but a flicker of unease stirred her chest as her daughter walked away, her red shirt a vivid splash against the muted tones of Hardin's landscape. As evening fell, the gathering wound down, and Case Sarah was last seen around 7 p.m., chatting with friends near the town's community center. She mentioned heading home, her steps light as she waved goodbye, her smile lingering in the memories of those who saw her. But as the hours passed, Case Sarah did not return. Diane's unease grew into alarm when dinner came and went without her daughter's familiar presence. She called Quezera's phone, but it went straight to voicemail, each unanswered ring tightening the knot in her stomach. Diane reached out to Quezera's friends, hoping she had lingered at the gathering, but no one had seen her since she left. By 9 p.m., panic set in, and Diane contacted the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office, her voice trembling as she reported her daughter missing. "She always comes home," Diane said, her words heavy with fear. "Something's wrong." The sheriff's office responded quickly, dispatching deputies to Hardin to begin a search. Quezera's family, joined by friends and neighbors, fanned out across town, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they called her name. They checked her usual haunts, the community center, the local diner, the quiet paths she often walked, but found no trace of her. The Crow Reservation, vast and rugged, posed a challenge, its open fields and winding roads offering countless places to disappear. Diane clung to hope, picturing Case Sarah safe, perhaps delayed by a flat tire or a chance encounter. But the silence of the night felt ominous, a stark contrast to her daughter's vibrant energy. The next morning, August 25th, the search intensified. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA, joined the effort, bringing federal resources to bear. Volunteers from the Crow Nation, many of whom knew Case Sarah personally, scoured the reservation, their footsteps heavy with determination. They searched fields, ditches, and the banks of the Little Bighorn River, their voices carrying her name across the landscape. The sheriff's office set up a command post in Hardin, coordinating with tribal leaders to cover every possible area. A tip came in from a resident who reported seeing a red shirt near a remote stretch of road outside town, but when deputies investigated, they found only a discarded rag, its color faded and unrelated to case Sarah. The disappointment was crushing, but Diane refused to give up, her resolve fueled by a mother's love. As days turned into weeks, the investigation took a troubling turn. The sheriff's office revealed that Quezera's disappearance was being treated as a possible homicide, based on the lack of evidence suggesting she had left voluntarily. Her phone, last pinged near Hardin on August 24th, had gone offline shortly after, its battery dead or deliberately disabled. Detectives interviewed everyone who had seen case Sarah that day, piecing together her final moments. A friend recalled her mentioning a man she had recently met, someone she described as kind of pushy, but harmless. The friend couldn't recall his name, and the lead fizzled out, leaving investigators grasping at straws. Another witness reported seeing a pickup truck idling near the community center around the time case Sarah left. Its driver obscured in the dusk, but no license plate or description emerged to narrow the search. The Crow Nation, already grappling with the crisis of missing and murdered indigenous women, MIW, felt the weight of Quezera's disappearance acutely. Her case became a rallying cry, with tribal leaders and activists demanding greater action from law enforcement. Diane joined the MIW movement, speaking at rallies with a trembling but resolute voice. "My daughter is not just a statistic," she said, her eyes blazing with grief and defiance. "She's a sister, a daughter, a friend. We need answers." The community held vigils, their prayers rising into the Montana sky, each gathering a testament to Quezera's impact. Red ribbons, a symbol of the MIW cause, adorned trees and fences across Hardin, a vivid reminder of the fight for justice. Months into the investigation, a grim discovery shifted the case. On November 12, 2019, a rancher checking his property 10 miles outside Hardin stumbled upon human remains in a shallow ravine, partially covered by brush. He alerted the sheriff's office, and deputies descended on the site, their hearts heavy with dread. The remains were badly decomposed, but clothing fragments, a red shirt, tattered jeans, matched Quezera's last known outfit. Dental records and a necklace found at the scene, one Diane recognized as Quezera's, confirmed the worst. It was her daughter. The coroner's report listed the cause of death as undetermined due to the body's condition, but signs of trauma, fractured bones, possible ligature marks, suggested foul play. The absence of clear evidence of sexual assault or a definitive murder weapon left the case classified as a suspicious death, a designation that frustrated Quezera's family, who believed she had been murdered. The discovery deepened the community's grief and fueled accusations of police inaction. Diane and tribal leaders criticized the sheriff's office and BIA for their slow response, pointing to jurisdictional complexities on the reservation as a barrier to justice. The Crow Nation's police force, underfunded and understaffed, relied heavily on federal and county support, creating gaps in the investigation. Diane recounted how deputies had dismissed early tips as unreliable, including a report of a man seen arguing with a woman resembling case Sarah near Hardin's outskirts. They didn't take it seriously, Diane said, her voice thick with anger. Every second mattered, and they wasted time. Activists echoed her frustration, noting that indigenous women's cases often received less attention than others, a systemic issue that left families like Quezera's fighting for scraps of progress. The police, under pressure, doubled down on the investigation. They re-interviewed witnesses, focusing on the pickup truck sighting and the mysterious man case Sarah had mentioned. A partial tire track found near the ravine was analyzed, but it matched countless vehicles in the area, offering no clear suspect. Forensic teams scoured the site for DNA, recovering a single hair that didn't belong to case Sarah, but testing yielded no match in national databases, suggesting the perpetrator was either unknown to law enforcement or had evaded capture. Detectives explored the possibility of a transient killer, someone passing through Hardin, but the theory lacked evidence. They also considered a local suspect, a man with a history of domestic violence who had been seen near the community center, but his alibi held, and no physical evidence linked him to the crime. Quezera's family, desperate for answers, hired a private investigator, pooling their limited resources to keep the case alive. The investigator uncovered a troubling detail. A gas station clerk in Hardin recalled seeing a man in a pickup truck on August 24th, his clothes stained with what looked like blood. The clerk hadn't reported it at the time, assuming it was unrelated, but the description matched the truck sighting. The lead, though promising, went cold when the clerk couldn't recall the man's face or vehicle details. The investigator also pressed the BIA to release more resources, but bureaucratic delays stalled progress, leaving the family feeling abandoned by the system. As the years passed, Quezra's case remained unsolved, a painful emblem of the MIW crisis. In 2021, the FBI took over as the lead agency, citing the case's complexity and the need for federal expertise. They launched a new round of searches, using drones and ground-penetrating radar to re-examine the ravine and surrounding areas, hoping to find overlooked evidence. The effort yielded a small metal fragment, possibly part of a tool or weapon, but was too degraded to provide answers. The FBI also established a tip line, promising anonymity to encourage reluctant witnesses, but few calls came and none led to a breakthrough. Diane and her family continue their fight, organizing annual walks in Quezra's honor, their footsteps a protest against silence and inaction. They wore red shirts, mirroring Quezra's last outfit, and carried signs demanding justice. "We won't stop," Diane vowed at a 2023 rally, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. Quezra deserves to be remembered, and her killer needs to be found. The Crow Nation, supported by MIW advocates, pushed for legislative changes, securing federal funding in 2024 to improve tribal law enforcement and case tracking for missing Indigenous women. While a step forward, it came too late for Quezra, whose case remained a haunting question mark. As of May 2025, Quezra Stop's Pretty Place's death remains unresolved. Her story is a stark reminder of the challenges facing Indigenous communities. Hardin, once a place of close-knit warmth, carries the weight of her loss, its streets quieter without her laughter. Diane visits the ravine where Quezra was found, leaving flowers and praying for answers, her faith tested but unbroken. The FBI continues to investigate, with periodic updates to the family, but the trail grows colder with each passing year. Quezra's memory endures in the red ribbons that flutter across the reservation, a symbol of a life stolen and a fight that persists. Her story, though unfinished, speaks to the resilience of her people, a call to honor the missing and demand justice in a world that too often looks away.